Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Thursday, June 19th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a high of 87 degrees Fahrenheit with a low of 65.8 degrees. Enjoy the pleasant temperatures as we head into our stories. Coming up on Alex's News, we'll dive into why the United States is reducing its diplomatic presence in Israel, examining the implications of this significant shift. Then, we explore a unique situation where the very future of a rural hospital is dependent on its distance from a main road, a crucial factor affecting its operations and community access. All these stories and more are coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. We begin this morning with a significant development out of the Middle East, where the United States has initiated the evacuation of non-essential diplomatic staff and their families from its embassy in Israel. This comes amidst a dramatic escalation of hostilities between Israel and Iran, signaling a deep concern within the U.S. government about the safety of its personnel. For more on this evolving situation, we turn to our reporter, Ethan. Ethan, walk us through the details of this diplomatic move.
Grace, this is a very fluid situation. The evacuation of U.S. diplomatic personnel from Israel officially began yesterday, Wednesday, June 18th, with a government plane airlifting an unspecified number of diplomats and family members who requested to leave. This decision, as reported by ABC 7 Los Angeles and Fox 10 in Mobile, Alabama, was a direct response to the intensifying conflict between Israel and Iran and the explicit possibility of the United States becoming directly involved. It's been categorized as an authorized departure, which essentially means non-essential staff and the families of all personnel are eligible to leave at government expense. Options for departure included land routes to Jordan or Egypt, as detailed by the Economic Times.
An authorized departure sounds very official, Ethan. Is this a sudden emergency response, or something that's been in the works?
That's an excellent question, Grace. Crucially, this evacuation yesterday was not a sudden emergency response to an immediate new threat. Rather, it was the pre-planned logistical execution of security protocols that had been activated days earlier. According to sources like Dawn.com and The Hindu, the U.S. State Department had already authorized the voluntary departure of family members and some non-emergency U.S. government employees from Israel on June 14th, 5 days ago. This was in direct response to what they termed a quote, volatile and unpredictable security situation, as hostilities with Iran escalated. So, yesterday's government flight was simply a further, deliberate implementation of these pre-existing security plans, indicating the State Department felt it prudent to reduce non-essential personnel as the environment worsened, as verified by CBS8.com and the Associated Press.
So it's not a hasty retreat but a calculated move. What does this mean for the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem itself? Is it still operational?
For all intents and purposes, its public operations have been significantly curtailed, Grace. Following the authorization for staff departures over the weekend, the embassy closed to the public on Monday, June 16th, 3 days ago, and is expected to remain shut through tomorrow, Friday, June 20th. Fox 10 and Newsweek have confirmed that remaining personnel have been ordered to shelter in place. In a major update to its travel guidance, the U.S. Department of State also elevated the travel advisory for Israel to Level 4 Do Not Travel on June 16th, citing armed conflict, terrorism, and civil unrest. This is the highest warning level and underscores just how unpredictable the situation is. The State Department has steadily increased its warnings across the broader Middle East, including Iraq, according to FOX 10.
That sounds like a dire warning for American citizens in the region. What about private American citizens trying to leave Israel? Has the U.S. government arranged flights for them?
Grace, this is where things get a bit cloudy, and it's caused some confusion. On Wednesday, Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee announced on X, formerly Twitter, that the embassy was indeed making plans for evacuation flights and ships for private American citizens. This was widely reported by ABC 7 Los Angeles and the Economic Times. He urged citizens to enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, or STEP, to get updates. However, This statement was directly contradicted by the State Department's Bureau of Consular Affairs. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, in a security alert issued today, June 19th, stated, quote, "We have no announcement about assisting private U.S. citizens to depart at this time," end quote. This position was reiterated by the Jerusalem Post and the Times of Israel. The State Department advises Americans who wish to leave to do so, quote, "by their own means," end quote, when safe. Compounding the difficulty for private citizens, Ben Gurion Airport, Israel's main international gateway, is reportedly closed to commercial flights, as confirmed by Newsweek and Arab News. Israeli seaports are also closed. While some land border crossings with Jordan and Egypt are operational, they are experiencing long delays. It seems, Grace, for private citizens, getting out is still a flight of individual effort, not a government-arranged journey.
That's certainly a tough spot for many Americans to be in. Ethan, all these diplomatic maneuvers are a direct consequence of the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. Can you give us an overview of how this long-standing shadow war has finally erupted into direct confrontation?
Absolutely, Grace. This is the heart of the matter. The escalation began on June 13th, 6 days ago, when Israel launched what it called Operation Rising Lion, a large-scale offensive involving airstrikes and special operations against dozens of locations across Iran, including key nuclear sites, military installations, and targets of senior military leaders, according to Associated Press News and Arab News. This marked a pivotal shift, being the first direct and overt military confrontation on Iranian territory, moving beyond their decades-long shadow war of covert operations, as detailed by the Times of Israel. In retaliation, Iran initiated Operation True Promise 3, launching hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones at targets across Israel. These attacks have struck cities including Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Beersheba, causing civilian casualties and significant damage. Newsweek reported that an Iranian missile struck the main hospital in southern Israel today, June 19th, causing extensive damage, but no serious injuries. Casualty figures are grim. A Washington-based human rights group stated Israeli strikes have killed at least 639 people in Iran, including 263 civilians. In Israel, at least 24 people have been killed and hundreds wounded. Iran's supreme leader has warned the U.S. against any military intervention, stating it would have, quote, "irreparable consequences," end quote, according to ABC 7 Los Angeles.
It's a truly perilous moment. Ethan, with President Trump issuing strong warnings about the U.S. potentially joining Israel in striking Iran's nuclear program and the movement of American military assets into the region, how close are we to even deeper U.S. involvement?
That's the million-dollar question, Grace, and it feels like we are on a very thin tightrope. The evacuations and the deployment of American military aircraft and warships underscore the increased possibility of deeper U.S. involvement. President Trump has repeatedly stated that Iran, quote, "cannot have a nuclear weapon," end quote, and has reportedly approved plans to attack Iran, though a final decision remains pending, according to Fox 10 and the Associated Press. The international community is definitely watching this volatile situation, with bated breath, with calls for de-escalation coming from various world leaders. This direct military confrontation truly marks a significant and dangerous moment for regional stability.
Ethan, thank you for breaking down what is undoubtedly a very complex and concerning situation. We will continue to follow this story as it develops. When we come back, we have a report on Story 2 of 2, an unexpected turn in the global economy. Our second story this morning takes us to Glenn County, California, where the Soul Hospital is facing a critical situation threatening healthcare access for thousands. It's a complex issue, and for more on this, we turn to our reporter Chloe, who has been following the developments closely. Chloe, what exactly is happening at Glenn Medical Center?
Grace, it's a truly concerning situation that, quite frankly, could leave a whole community without a medical lifeline. Glenn Medical Center, or GMC as it's known, is the only hospital in Glenn County, and it's on the brink of losing its Critical Access Hospital, or CAH, designation. This status is absolutely crucial because it provides vital enhanced Medicare reimbursements, which keep the hospital financially afloat. Losing it would be a devastating blow.
So, this Critical Access Hospital designation sounds like a big deal. What's the core of the dispute with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or CMS, that could cause them to lose it?
It all boils down to mileage, Grace. To qualify for CAH status, a hospital typically needs to be located more than 35 miles from the nearest hospital. Now, according to hospital administrators, the primary route from GMC to the nearest hospital, Colusa Medical Center, is 35.7 miles, which should qualify them. However, CMS is basing its decision on a shorter alternative route of just 32 miles using County Road 306. CMS contends this shorter route disqualifies GMC from its CAH designation. But here's the catch. Local officials and health officer Dr. Jared Garrison vehemently argue that this 32-mile route is neither viable nor safe for emergency ambulances or the general public. As Dr. Garrison was quoted saying, quote, "This is not the road people would take. This is not the road the ambulance takes. This is just not accurate," end quote.
That sounds like a serious disconnect between map data and real-world conditions. Does CMS have any flexibility in their interpretation of what constitutes a usable road?
Unfortunately, not much, Grace. CMS maintains a very rigid technical definition of secondary roads. They define them as any road that isn't a numbered federal or multi-lane state highway. What's more, their verification relies solely on map-based analysis without physical inspections. So, they don't consider practical factors like paving, seasonal accessibility, or even average travel speed. Legal precedents consistently uphold CMS's authority to rely on these official classifications over actual on-the-ground conditions, making it an uphill battle for hospitals like GMC. It's a truly rigid interpretation that's creating milestones, if you will, for these rural hospitals to overcome.
That's a challenging hurdle indeed. What are the direct consequences if Glenn Medical Center loses this designation? What could the community expect?
The consequences are dire, Grace. CMS's April 2025 decision to revoke GMC's CAH designation has put it in a dire financial situation. Without that critical reimbursement, reporting indicates the emergency department and inpatient services will likely close within 12 months, potentially by spring 2026. This would be absolutely devastating for Glenn County. It's a rural community where a significant portion of the population relies on public assistance. Losing the hospital would mean significantly longer emergency response times, and it would exacerbate existing healthcare disparities, leaving a massive gap in care. We're talking about today, June 19, 2025, so this could happen in less than a year.
And what about that County Road 306? You mentioned it's not viable. Are there documented reasons why it's considered unsafe for emergency transport?
Yes, absolutely. County Road 306 has a documented history of vulnerability to weather-related disruptions. For example, local reports confirm that a bridge over Salt Creek on that very road was closed in January 2023 due to severe storm damage, though it has since undergone emergency repairs and reopened. Despite active maintenance, this history of flood-related closures really underscores the valid concerns raised by local officials regarding its reliability, especially for critical emergency transport. It's a road that's taken its fair share of bumps.
It sounds like a community fighting for its life. What actions are being taken by the hospital and the community to fight this decision?
They are indeed fighting tooth and nail. An immediate response to what they're calling a devastating federal ruling, a grassroots advocacy campaign, Save Glenn Medical, launched in early June 2025 to mobilize community support. GMC had a final appeal with CMS on May 23, 2025, and as of today, June 19, 2025, they are still awaiting the final decision. The launch of this campaign strongly suggests that the appeal was not immediately successful. They've also sought political intervention, with GMC in communication with U.S. Congressman Doug LaMalfa and Senator Alex Padilla, and the Sierra Sacramento Valley EMS Agency is also actively working on the issue.
This isn't an isolated incident, is it, Chloe? Are other rural hospitals facing similar battles across California, or even the nation?
That's a crucial point, Grace. The struggle of Glenn Medical Center is unfortunately not isolated. It truly reflects the precarious state of rural healthcare across California and the nation. Other California hospitals have indeed received similar CMS letters regarding their CAH status. A stark example of this vulnerability is Madera Community Hospital. It tragically closed in December 2022, leaving approximately 160,000 residents without local services, highlighting the profound impact of such closures. While Madera Community Hospital did eventually reopen in March 2025, it serves as a stark reminder of how close these communities come to losing vital healthcare access permanently. This isn't just a bump in the road, it's a chasm for many.
A very sobering picture indeed, Chloe. Thank you for shedding light on this critical issue facing Glenn County. We'll certainly be keeping an eye on this developing story.
My pleasure, Grace.
And that brings us to the end of our segment this morning. Here are some other headlines. Down on Mexico's Pacific coast, residents are bracing for a real blow. Hurricane Eric has rapidly intensified into an extremely dangerous Category 4 storm, with winds whipping at 145 miles per hour. The storm, which grew from a tropical storm to a major hurricane in just over a day, is expected to make landfall today along the coast of Oaxaca or Guerrero. President Claudia Sheinbaum has suspended all activities in the region, urging people to seek shelter as forecasters predict a life-threatening storm surge and up to 16 inches of rain. The heavy rainfall threatens dangerous flooding and mudslides, not just on the coast, but in the mountainous terrain of several states, including Chiapas and Jalisco. The sense of urgency is high, especially with the memory of Hurricane Otis from 2023 still fresh in many minds. In Texas, it seems SpaceX's plans for its next Starship test flight have unfortunately blown up. A prototype rocket identified as Starship 36 exploded in a spectacular fireball during a ground test late Wednesday night at the company's Starbase facility. The vehicle, part of the most powerful rocket system ever built, was destroyed in what SpaceX is calling a major anomaly. The company confirmed all personnel were safe, and founder Elon Musk, never one to miss a beat, quipped on social media that it was just a scratch. While a setback, SpaceX considers these explosive tests a valuable, if dramatic, part of its rapid development process for reaching the Moon and Mars. Overseas, the Swiss National Bank appears to be losing interest in high rates. The central bank cut its key interest rate by 0.25 percentage point, bringing it down to zero. This is the sixth such cut since last March, a move aimed at tackling easing inflation and the rising value of the Swiss franc, which makes the country's famous exports more expensive. Officials also pointed to a gloomier global economic outlook. While the bank is now just one step away from reintroducing negative interest rates, the chairman indicated that such a move would not be taken lightly. In the courts, a new lawsuit is serving up a challenge to federal funding for higher education. The state of Tennessee and the conservative group Students for Fair Admissions are suing the Department of Education, arguing that providing dedicated funding to Hispanic-serving institutions is unconstitutional. The lawsuit targets the over $228 million program, claiming the requirement that a school's student body be at least 25% Hispanic to qualify for grants amounts to an unlawful ethnic quota. The legal challenge draws heavily on the group's successful 2023 Supreme Court case that ended race-conscious college admissions. And finally, a deal that's a real slam dunk for the record books. The Buss family has reportedly agreed to sell a controlling interest in the Los Angeles Lakers for a staggering $10 billion, shattering the previous record for a sports team sale. The buyer is Mark Walter, who also owns the LA Dodgers. The Buss family, who brought 11 championships to the city since Dr. Jerry Buss bought the team in 1979, will pass the ball to a new owner but will retain a minority share. Jeannie Buss is set to remain the team's governor, and Lakers legend Magic Johnson has publicly endorsed the sale, calling it a move he can trust to carry on the Buss legacy. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.